everyone, I am here with a story for you from our Miracles Do Happen book. These are true stories that people send in to Guidepost. Let's see how long this one is. This one's a little longer. And it is called Out of the Mist, and it is by Joyce Starr Mackius. My husband Ken collapsed in a heap on the living room floor. His skin was ghost white by the time I got him to the hospital. Moments later, nurses screamed for the crash cart. His blood pressure was 40/0. A near-death situation. I tried to pray, but I didn't know how. I believed in God in a general way, but I didn't know if He would or could involve Himself in my situation. I prayed anyway, pleading for my husband's life as I paced back and forth in the waiting room. I learned that my husband was bleeding internally from a stomach ulcer and that intravenous transfusions were barely keeping pace with his blood loss. Hours later, after Ken fell asleep, a nurse sent me home. I dozed off, but a frightening dream woke me up at about 2 a.m. I was in a hospital room that had 3 solid walls and a 4th one that was floor-to-ceiling mist. Ken was slowly sliding through the misty wall, and I knew he would die if he went all the way through the other side. I grabbed his right arm, putting one hand above his elbow and the other just below it, tugging with all my might. I sometimes gained a little, and other times almost lost him to the mist. I pulled one last time, and his bed suddenly slid away from the fog. He was free. The dream was so real that I called the emergency room and asked a nurse to check on my husband. I drove frantically to the hospital, knowing something was wrong. My heart pounded as I rushed to the emergency room. As I arrived, the doctor explained that my husband's transfusion line had clogged during the night, shutting off the blood he so badly needed. It's a good thing someone went to check on him, the doctor said. I gasped. Had God woken me so I would call the hospital? A nurse stepped away from Ken, and I glimpsed his right arm. He had black and blue marks just above and below his elbow, in the places I had clutched in my dream. How could it be? A nurse told me that blood from the clogged transfusion had seeped under the skin and caused a bruising, but I knew better. I realized something more than mere coincidence was at work in that hospital room. Ken's condition improved dramatically, and in 2 weeks he was sent home to get strong enough for ulcer surgery. I took him to the doctor every 2 weeks, and each time the doctor wanted to wait a little longer before scheduling surgery. All that time I was asking, what if, about my dream? What if the dream hadn't happened? And what if I hadn't called the hospital? What if the nurse hadn't checked the transfusion line just in time? I knew God had somehow answered my prayers with His own special warning system, and now He seemed to be topping it off by healing Ken's ulcer. I didn't know that the best was yet to come. I had a midnight to 8 a.m. job, and because Ken needed a stress-free environment for his recovery, I stayed up nearly all day to keep the children quiet. I only got about 3 hours of unbroken sleep after they went to bed. So when I saw a newspaper ad for a 2-week vacation Bible school, I jumped at the opportunity to send my kids. It wasn't a spiritual awakening. I just wanted a few hours of sleep. For 2 weeks, our children heard the truths of the Bible. Ken and I went to the closing program and were so impressed that we started attending church. Before long, God's message trickled into our hearts, and we saw our need of Him. We both came to know Jesus Christ as our personal Lord and Savior. 40 years have passed since then. The children are grown, and all 3 are serving God. One of them in full-time ministry. Ken never needed surgery for his ulcers. Even after all this time, I'm still convinced that God used a dream to bring our family out of the mist of unbelief into the clarity of His salvation. And I 100% believe that too. I know God does miracles like that. He does miracles of all kind, and should be all so thankful for Him.